school is not a place for racism. Embodied in this title is the presupposition that racism exists in schools. Well, you might say racism exists everywhere, not only in schools. Racism exists in every country, in every workplace, in every context. But, yes, racism may exist. Even then, just because something is, it need not be that way. Or at least we can try to make it better, because racism does not serve anybody. In the context of my own country, and from my experience as a teacher, racism in school is bad. And it is not just random racism by individuals, but it is institutionalized racism, and that is why racism in school warrants a discussion. When our children are young, we teach them how to categorize objects according to the physical appearance of those objects in order to help them understand the world around them. This behavior continues and gets applied to every area, including categorizing human beings according to appearance. Needless to say, a lot of this is taught through modeling. The children learn it from us by observing what we do and say. As a result of learning how to categorize human beings into groups based on appearance, the construct called race appeared. What is race? Well, I can explain it by replacing it with another synonym, ethnicity, but still, that does not explain anything. So what is race? Let me demonstrate to you why race is nothing at all. And in fact, it is something that was socially constructed to further the agenda of certain people. We tend to classify people into groups based on their physical appearances. So I guess you would agree with me that all of these people shown here in this photograph represent people from different race groups. But sometimes we also put people into groups according to their nationality. And we also put people into groups based on the geographical region from which they originate. And sometimes we just categorize people into this construct or into groups collectively called race or ethnicity by their clothes, the clothes they wear, the attire they adorn. It is now very clear that people are assigned to race groups based on physical appearance, or rather based on differences in physical appearances, and this is a very haphazard and unscientific process. So now let's look at science to determine whether we are really that different from one another. Guess what? The differences in physical appearances that we see in human beings is due to a very, very small difference in DNA. And most of the differences that are visible, that we use to divide people and classify and categorize people into groups called race, are due to the environment in which we live. And on top of that, science has found evidence that the DNA of all human beings are 99% the same. So, it's time to ask ourselves this question: are we really that different? I am very sure that you would agree with me if I say that the most commonly used physical appearance criteria to group people into race is skin color. Take a look at the different shades of the skin color. Are we really that different? Take a look. Isn't every skin color of a human being essentially a shade of brown? We're not that different, are we? Just to reinforce what I have earlier said, the race debate is mostly centered only around the skin color. And skin color variation is due to evolution according to environment and other external factors. Nothing to do with genetics. So, we're not really that different. In my country, identity politics is widespread. Racial stereotypes are used to inform policies and practices by individuals in their everyday lives. Let me tell you this: intelligence and behavior has no correlation with skin color. So as an individual, if you care about the well-being of your country, stop adhering to racial stereotypes. It's not only uninformed and uneducated, it is also very, very destructive. Now, just to strengthen my message to you further, that there are really no difference, or at least there isn't that much difference between different race groups, let me first share with you the concept of species. Species is the smallest category into which organisms can be grouped into. And did you know that an organism is considered to belong to a species if a male and female of that organism can conjugate and produce a fertile offspring, right? So if this is a little too wordy for you to understand, let's look at these circles. Just imagine that these circles are different race groups, right? So if we were to draw a Venn diagram, I'm sure you're familiar with the Venn diagram. You would have done it at maths at some point. If we were to draw a Venn diagram based on similarities between groups, meaning when each group has some similar characteristics, we overlap them. So based on genetic differences between race groups, if we were to attempt to draw a Venn diagram, this is what the Venn diagram would end up looking like. So we have to put it so close because 99% of our DNA is the same, as I had mentioned before. So we have to literally overlap it on top of one another, and eventually you will see that while there is a little misalignment of the lines, apart from that, what we would have constructed is one single circle to represent the human species. We are all one. We cannot be further subdivided. So are we really that different? No, we're not. I hope I have delivered this message very, very clearly. We are not that different, so let's not carry on tugging at opposite ends, dividing, and eventually bringing about destruction for ourselves. Summarily, race is a lie. Race is a social construct. Scientifically, biologically, and genetically, race does not exist. It is merely a falsehood contrived to divide, discriminate, and exclude. By who and why? Ponder upon it. I would like to leave you with these thoughts. Look at the pictures of these two leaders. Both were charismatic leaders with great oratory skills, promised and did initially bring about a lot of benefits for their countries in terms of economic growth and also the expansion of their territories. But we also now know that during their rule, they were instrumental in starting terrible wars in the world or within their own region, and on their hands Adolf Hitler has 50 million deaths of civilians and soldiers, and Mao Zedong has on his hands 80 million deaths on his hands during his rule. So I believe that racial stereotyping, identity politics, and division always brings destruction. So our role as teachers is very important for us to watch our conduct, our words, what we do, what we say, to keep schools free of racism. Let school be a place where children learn to be united,